So today we'll do Mahayana Buddhism. Buddhism has already been done quite in detail. I will not go into Buddhism, but we have to see the elements of Buddhism every now and then to understand Mahayana, because in the background of Buddhism, to understand Mahayana Buddhism. Okay? We'll do the lecture in two parts. First is the story of origin, how and why it arose, the reason behind the emergence, the misconceptions as well as reality as historians know it. And in the second half, we'll talk about the features, salient features one by one. Mahayan is important because almost one third of the questions, as I said, in prelims of Buddhism come from Mahayan. So if they're asking 20 questions in 10 years on Buddhism, of those 20, almost 6 to 7 questions will be from Mahayan. So it is an important aspect. But students generally falter because they study only ancient India NCERT, and that contains your Bodhisattva, Padmapani, Buddha became God, and his Murti started. That's all. You need to go beyond that. So we'll study in detail. Origin story. See, Buddhism emerged in India in the 6th century BCE, and over the next 1500 years, it spread across the world, wherever it could go, especially through the oceanic trade route and silk trade route, because these are the important trade routes of India for rest of Asia. And when India was a very significant economic player, it also influenced significant economic or cultural power. When you are strong power, everything becomes free to everybody. So they say, see, 1, 2, no, 3 of you are wearing jeans. Why? Because America is superpower. Simple. That's what NCERT tells us, right? Jeans is nothing but American labor's uniform in mines. People don't consider it as very credible thing. When I remember when in my hometown Pune, McDonald had come for the first time, people queued outside. लगातार 4 दिन McD आया है. Such a fascination. When I went to US myself for a couple of years, McD I understood लेबर लोगों का खाना है. मेरे पास जब पैसे नहीं होते थे, I just had only $1, $2, I used to go to McD. It was not considered good food at all by anybody. Not prestige. Prestige जो elite prestige जो होता है, that is not associated with McD in US. In India है, क्योंकि अमेरिकन है. क्योंकि अमेरिका सुपर पावर है. देखो बुद्धिज्म. Point is that Buddhism may have had some reasons for its emergence in its own land. As it spread across the world, the reasons changed. Buddhism also changed. And people adopted it for their own needs. Buddhism got modified along with. So I have all the text over here. I'll read also one by one so that you don't have to worry. Mahayan movement is characterized by a grandiose cosmology, often complex ritualism, paradoxical metaphysics, and universal ethics. Now, you will not remember these phrases. I know that, but understand this thing. These terms, why I have written here, not because they are the significant features of Mahayan, but because it contrasts itself from the early Buddhism. Early Buddha doesn't talk about God. He says God is irrelevant to me. Somebody posed this question to Buddha, भगवान है कि नहीं है? Buddha बोला मैं क्या करूँ उससे? He neither accepted nor rejected, he was irrelevant. See, my purpose is to get nirvana, and for getting nirvana, I have to strive myself. God is irrelevant to that process, so I won't comment on it. It may be, it may not be, I don't care. Simple, early Buddhism. So when there is no God, there is no heaven, there is no hell. Well, there is heaven in Buddhism, वो है, वो अलग बात है, but I am taking metaphysically, you have all these things. But when you come to Mahayan, you have emergence of very grandiose, huge, magnificent cosmology. We have a separate slide on cosmology. का मतलब क्या होता है? वो universe यहाँ पे कि you have heaven में various levels, वहाँ पे भगवान क्या क्या करते हैं, ये सब imagination करना space का, going beyond your earth, that entire thing is cosmology. You have complex ritualism. Buddha was against ritualism. रिचुअल नहीं, इसलिए तो उसने शुरू किया था 6th century BC में. Sacrifices रोको, कर्मकांड नहीं चाहिए, कोई मतलब नहीं है. But all these things came into Buddhism also when Mahayana became important. You have paradoxical metaphysics. Buddhism has a lot of metaphysics. But here it is paradoxical. Means you go stating one fact, one principle rather, and you apply the principle to principle itself, and you avoid the principle. जैसे कि आप कहते कि there is no, we'll see that Shunyavad, there is no reality, and you apply that statement to the statement itself. Buddhism is not real. ठीक है? So paradoxic, and it is very beautiful and very complex. And then you have universal ethics, Mahayan. Specifically, it is not about individual. Buddhism originally was always and always about individual. Buddha said, Atta Deepa Bhava, you become your own light. He even say, Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Appamadena Sampadetha. The last phrase of it in Pali. Atta hi attano natho, atta hi attano gati. You become your own Lord, you become your own future. Self-help. No external intervention is there. You have to help. It is individual. आपको निर्वाण चाहिए, आप अपनी कोशिश करो, ये रास्ता मैंने बताया है. That is original Buddhism. यहाँ पे सबका भला होगा. Universal ethics, universal savior. So this is the context, and these things are very rich, and therefore Mahayan could become much more popular across the world. It became acceptable to various local cultures. Arose within Indian Buddhism around the beginning of century, around the birth of Christ. So it was not original to the Buddha's era. It extended many principles of Buddha's era. It sometimes very smartly subverted them without calling it subversion. Sometimes many elements in Mahayan look like they are against what Buddha is saying, but they justify it in a very smart way, paradoxical also sometimes. It looks like it is extension of Buddhism, even though sometimes it could be opposition of original Buddhism. तो दिखना है कैसे करना है, but arose within India. So this was the original land of Buddhism, UP, Bihar. This is early Buddhism. It spread everywhere, and most of the things that spread in South India and Southeast Asia, they were Hinayana, and other things which went everywhere were Mahayan. And in Tibetan Buddhism, we have a version of Mahayan. In entire China, we have local Buddhist schools which are versions of Mahayan. In Japan, we have Buddhism that is version of Mahayan. So it is Mahayan that went from Gandhar to everywhere else, and wherever it went, it got modified with local culture. Became the dominant influence on the Buddhist cultures in Central and East Asia by the 9th century and remains today. Even today, all the Chinese Nichiren Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, all these things which are complex, which are nothing but some local versions of Mahayan only. Also spread to Southeast Asia, but has not survived there. So we have Mahayan in this part also, but it did not survive there. Today we have Hinayana there. But Hinayana, you already know, it is very similar to what early Buddhism was. So we will not study it separately as such. Now, generally students have this simplified idea that there was first Hinayana, the old school of Buddhism, then came Mahayan, and then came Vajrayana. It is incorrect. It is false notion. Get rid of it. There was the difference between Mahayan and non-Mahayan Buddhism are usually more of a matter of degree than of the basic opposition. Bodhisattva is not invented by Mahayan. It is there in Hinayana also. Role and emphasis on Bodhisattva has changed in Mahayan. वो बहुत important बन गया. Okay, so everything you see is there in everywhere else, but it is so complex that the degree of emphasis changes. The notion changes, but the things are there. Non-Mahayan literary sources date from a time when Mahayan had already become established, and therefore both sets of sources reflect mutual influences. So Hinayana and Mahayan are developing simultaneously. फर्क क्या है बताऊंगा मैं आपको. So it is not a series sequence. Vajrayana is nothing but a sub branch of Mahayan. Mahayan got extended into Vajrayana. So I'll show you how it is. This is the timeline that you get from Wikipedia. It's a good influence, good timeline. You have the 450 BC, 500 BC. So this is the time of Buddha. And you go in time, you have ancient, you have early medieval, stop here. You see how it is progressing. This early Sangha is between the first and second council. In the early Sangha, it is unified Sangha. There are some problems, some issues, but it is largely unified, not an issue at all. After second council, gradually we have fragmentation of Buddhism into various schools. We call them Nikaya Buddhisms. Okay, 18 of them. 18 schools of Buddhism that you find in these early Buddhist schools. They debate, they discuss. There are many, many schools. The question that UPSC asked a couple of years ago was from this only, one of this. We need to study them in detail, but not right now. Don't worry about that. I'm focusing on Mahayana. Then, from these 18 schools, some schools got lost. We have Mahasanghika, etc., Thaviras. All these are schools of these 18 schools. In the third Buddhist council of Ashoka, we have a great book compiled at that time. Its name is Kathavattu or Kathavastu. In Pali, we call it Kathavattu. The third Buddhist council, Kathavattu gives in detail the debates between these 18 schools. चल क्या रहा है, कौन किसको अपोज कर रहा है. It's the person, the author demolishes arguments of all 18 one by one. All 17 one by one, puts his own viewpoint. And he is doing that philosophically. Ashoka is doing that rudely. If you don't follow this, you'll be ousted. Right? Sanchi and Sarnath pillar inscription, schism एक साथ में चल रहा है. तो किताब में कथावत्तु बन रही है, वहाँ अशोक लिख रहा है ये डिसिप्लिन फॉलो करो और आप निकाल दो, आपको खदेड़ दिया जाएगा यहाँ से. Because there are a lot of problems in Buddhism, lot of differences. Why it is happening? Buddha appointed no successor. We have seen that. After me, deluge. Anyway, Buddha appointed no successor and left his followers to interpret the Dhamma for themselves. It was not long before disagreements arose, initially on the matters of monastic practice, and later we'll see that also on doctrine. So you have to see what is happening. Differences अगर आ रहे हैं कि बुद्धा फॉर्म्ड संघा, अर्ली संघा. डिफरेंसेस आते हैं कौन से इशू पे आते हैं. बुद्धिज्म इज नॉट अ सिंगल रिलीजन जहाँ पे डिफरेंस आते हैं. Differences come in every religion. In Islam, we have Shia Sunni. In Christianity, you have Protestant and Catholicism. You have in Hinduism, Shaiva and Vaishnava. You have, these are very broad categories, but differences are, this is sect formation. If you are from sociology, you know that sect formation, sectarianism. Okay. So sect formation can happen after religion is formed, or sometimes sects matured into religion. That's a different story. But when that sect formation happens, that process of sect forming, branching out of two things, is called a schism. Schism. टुकड़े होना, भेद. तो बुद्धिज्म में भेद कब और कैसे हुआ, ये बड़ा डिबेट का इशू है. पहली बार भेद हुआ, स्किज्म हुआ, वी हैव 18 टुकड़े. Out of the 18 fragments, some of them vanished, some of them combined and formed Hinayana, and some other of them combined and formed Mahayan. So Hinayan is not old. Hinayan has some elements which are very original, no doubt, but Hinayan and Mahayan are developing simultaneously. ठीक है. So we have these early Buddhist schools, then Mahayan emerging, and then Hinayan emerging over here. Then Mahayan becoming important. And from Mahayan, we have Vajiram emerging, that becomes important in Pala era. So that is why we generally say that this is early Buddhism, this is Hinayan, Mahayan, Vajrayana. And early Buddhism, because Hinayan has preserved the tenets of early Buddhism to larger extent. Whatever is Hinayan, we call it old Buddhism, but it is factually incorrect. Okay? Now, how and where did Mahayan emerge? The mystery of its origin. It is not still completely understood. There is a lot of debate because, as I said, the reasons of this Bheda, what are the reasons? There could be either Buddha has written 2 books or given 2 important books from the first council. One is Sutta Pitaka, other is Vinaya Pitaka. No, you have to fight over either of them. Either you fight over Vinaya or fight over Sutta. Vinaya is discipline. If you are a monk or a nun, you have to follow Buddhist discipline in the Sangha. Sometimes you want to change the discipline. Sometimes you don't agree with discipline. Then Buddha himself had said that I have all the Dhamma Vinayas. Of them, some are major Vinayas, some are minor Vinayas. Minor Vinayas you can change with consensus of community. Major Vinayas you can't change. But he did not define which is major, which is minor. Ab aa gaya problem. So these monks used to meet all the time in meetings that which is major, which is minor. I want to add this Vinaya, to remove this Vinaya. And why? Maza aa raha isliye nahi. Because the society was changing. Some rules were getting obsolete. or some new rules were required sometimes. Buddhism is spreading out of UP Bihar to Afghanistan. There we have different culture. So discipline of Sangha is not suitable all the time for all the era, everywhere. So there is debate. That is one thing. And second is about the doctrine. For example, I have taken one issue, Buddha कौन था, भगवान था या नहीं था? Buddha did not appoint any successor. So if you become a great sadhu, great monk, you achieve nirvana, you will become Buddha himself. Who will you be? Arhat. So Arhat is somebody who is just one stage below Buddha. So what is the relation between you as Arhat and Buddha? Are you the new Buddha? आपने सारा पाथ तो ट्रेवल कर लिया है, you have got nirvana. Then, so what is the difference between you and Buddha? So these are issues that were not solved and debate was going on. So status of Buddha versus Arhat was one debate. It's a doctrinal issue. It's about doctrine. And then you have discipline issue. Attempts by some people to modify the rules of monastic religion, monastic behavior. So on these two issues, doctrine and discipline, there was debate. But the important point is debate started primarily over discipline and not over doctrine. तो भगवान एक ही है, पूजा एक ही जैसे करनी है, मान्यता भी एक ही है, बट कैसे रहना है थोड़ा फर्क है. इसलिए when Mahayana comes to India, Yuan Sang come to India, they see that in same monastery both of them reside, Mahayan and Hinayan. They are not separate. It's not a huge direct separation. It's not like Protestant ने अपने 95 thesis कील मार दिए और अलग रिलीजन बन गया. It's not like that. It's very gradual and slow process. So traced the older Mahasangika school. So Mahasangika is one of the schisms that arose earlier from which Mahayan primarily emerged. But it was not only Mahasangika, many other sects also were absorbed by Mahayan. Then region where it happened exactly, we have no idea. Some scholars say that the oldest sutras, the oldest literature of Mahayan comes from South India. But the oldest inscription of Mahayan is found in Mathura. And the most important region of Mahayan is in Gandhar. There is debate. But we'll focus on Gandhar because from where only it spreads everywhere. So Gandhar is for us. But the most important thinker of Mahayan, Nagarjuna, is from Telugu land. Well, at that time there was no Telugu language, that's a different story. It's from Andhra Pradesh. Then Sangha Bheda. So Mahayana was not initially a sectarian movement like Protestantism, nor did it cause, spelling mistake, a schism in the Sangha. So Sangha Bheda nahi hua tha suddenly. It happened gradually. We have some stories in Jainism also. You have stories of this. Some monk in Jainism, कोई अकाल पड़ा था बिहार में. उस समय बिहार नहीं कहलाता था, मगध कहलाता था. मगध में, then he had to travel somewhere. Then he came back after 12 years. The discipline has changed. Then we have Shwetambar and Digambar. So this is a story. This is not historical fact. So in here also you have various stories what happened exactly, but we need to know that the separation did not happen in one way. It did not happen in any single council. It was a long duration process. Gradual, and the reasons could be doctrinal and disciplinarian, Dhamma and Vinaya, but the real reason is neither of them. The contextual, the background is general stress. As Buddhism began to spread beyond its home territory, it encountered new customs and new ideas. How to confront them? Do we oppose them? Do we accommodate them? How do you accommodate them? सीधी बात है. So वहाँ से when the Buddhism started facing diversity, it had to started feeling stress. It had to change because the message that Buddha gave was for 6th century BCE, Ganga Valley only. To make it universal, how to do it? Mahayana. So context for the rise of Mahayana. As I said, when Buddha was there in 6th century BCE in Ganga Valley, what was the scenario? It is second urbanization of India. Second urbanization, we have Iron Age, cities coming up after long Vedic era and later Vedic era. Society is settling, and you have inequality. You have some kind of harking back for nostalgia for simple life. You have class differences coming of Dalit, the Daridra word is there, for example, appearing for the first time. So class differences. The old religion is found unsuitable and unsatisfying. And you have new social classes that have come up who are rich, who have economic status, but do not have social status. You do not have social status. तो जैसे पैसे आ गए हैं लेकिन इज्जत नहीं है समाज में, क्या करूँगा? आई विल स्टार्ट फंडिंग द एनिमी और द अपोनेंट, नॉट एनिमी, अपोनेंट, वो मुझे इज्जत देगा, सीधी बात है. Varna City is just example of it. On this, religion changes very slowly. Economy changes very quickly. I told last lecture only. And now economy has changed, religion is yet to change, people are feeling stress. So you have rebellions, you have revolt. Buddhism, Jainism. So that message was suitable for those people at that time. But as it changed, society changed, economy changed over next few hundred years. Now Buddhism is going to Gandhar region, for example, Kushana era. Here people are not facing second urbanization, they are already urban for long time. They don't remember this old Vedic era जहाँ पे हम झोपड़ी में रहते थे, equality थी, simplicity थी, इनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता. They don't have any kind of guilt for luxury. If you go to them and tell them renounce everything, बोलेंगे घर जाओ, नहीं करना renounce, आप कौन बोलने वाले हमें? But they have their own needs which are spiritual. So needs have changed, religion has to change. If any religion says we are like the original puritanical religion, धोखा है सबसे बड़ा. No religion is ever static. It has to change. If it does not change, it is a problem. It's not a good thing. Gods have to change. Doctrines have to modify themselves. Now Buddhism will change because people have changed. Needs have changed. So in post-Mauryan era, what is happening? You have great trading in India. We have seen in detail the Roman trade, China trade, Silk Road trade. This is a very different society and economy from the second urbanization and Iron Age. यहाँ पे you have different needs, so you have different religion emerging, that is Mahayana. So concepts of early Buddhism like Nirvana and rebirth were Indic, they are very Indian, and it was difficult for people elsewhere, like in Gandhar and outside region, to understand them. Traders accustomed to material transactions found little sense in the idea of eliminating material desire. क्यों सब त्याग करना है, नहीं करना. तो बुद्धा ट्रांसफॉर्म, क्या क्या बदला फिर बुद्धिज्म में? बुद्धा गॉट ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड इनटू फ्रॉम फिलोसोफर टीचर इनटू अ गॉड, because other people are more accustomed to God. You have Buddha images were to be worshipped. You have Bodhisattvas who were there earlier also. They are not invented by Mahayan, but they were called as the previous births of Buddha. Now Bodhisattvas who were earlier former lives of Buddha became deities themselves. And they had functions. They created Sukhavati, heaven, a staging place where if you are a common mortal, will go make you go there, sit there for some time till you get your final nirvana. आपको मिलेगा सब कुछ free of cost. पैसे दे दो पैसे थोड़ा, because they are rich people. So rich it is. Buddhism was a very religion of people who wanted to take efforts. Mahayan is for rich people or pious people. If at popular level, it is for pious people. जिनकी भक्ति है, श्रद्धा है, उनके लिए महायान है. जिनको विपश्यना करनी है, जिनको जाके खुद का एफर्ट लेना है, उनके लिए हीनयान है. सो डिवोटीज है. निर्वाण मिलने से पहले हम आपको सब देंगे फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट, आगे बैठो. पीपल कुड मेक डोनेशंस एंड प्रे टू इमेजेस ऑफ बुद्धा एंड गेन रिलीजियस मेरिट, पाप एंड पुण्य. तो लेट अस से यू आर अ खूनी, गंगा में डुबकी लगाओगे, बट बुद्धिज्म में वो है नहीं. So you need to have some punya. अब आप कितना, how much merit you can earn yourself if you are a murderer. But he is a very pious person. He has lot of merit. So both of you, I am with this monk, come to me. चढ़ावा दे दो मुझे, पूजा करो, इसका मेरिट मैं आपको ट्रांसफर कर दूंगा. So P2P transfer of merit is also there. It is popular religion. Popular is not famous. It is people's, लोगों की. लोगों के लिए आपको बदलना पड़ता है. It is popular religion. You have Gandharan and Mathura school of art emerged. We have seen already Buddha murtis and everything. It is because of Mahayana. And Sanskrit replaced Pali for Buddhist theological text, and rise of Mahayana coincides very well with rise of Sanskrit. So when we have the earliest Sanskrit, long Sanskrit inscription of Rudradaman in Junagadh, it is the era when first Mahayana sutras were composed. Sanskrit is becoming important across India as an important language for every religion, including Buddhism. So Mahayan people now reject old language and they follow new language. You have seen that when we saw Kanishka and Ashwaghosh. We have seen that. That is happening right now. So these are the changes that happened due to समय बदल गया है. Time has changed. So this is the context of rise of Mahayana. Now we see salient features one by one. Okay. Firstly, ideas of Buddha. The concept of Buddha itself changed. There is a term that arose in 20th century called Buddhology. Buddhology. Well, it's an academic term. In that you study Buddha, idea about Buddha, Buddha's doctrines, all these things, how it changed. Academic study of Buddha and Buddhist doctrines is called Buddhology. Okay. So, and it's a very modern term, but still, Buddha became, the ideas of Buddha changed. The first change in Mahayana. What changed? Bodhisattva comes into foreground and Buddha recedes and becomes more sublime. So now, what I will do is every slide I will talk about comparison with old Buddhism, so you will get the contrast. In old Buddhism, Buddha was more important and Bodhisattvas were just early Jatak Katha, just earlier lives. Now Buddha is getting sublime, usko lag diya upar kahin jaake, and Bodhisattvas became the main element of Mahayana. The second thing is emergence of Mahayana cosmology and Buddhology. Therefore, all these Bodhisattvas there everywhere. Where do they stay? What do they do? You need to create space and time for them. You have the elaborate stories of cosmology, like in Puranas. We have a lot of cosmological element. In Buddhism also you have many stories, many pantheon creation. It's like Marvel comics. You have various superheroes. This is Marvel comics, and they're, you know Marvel, no? So Buddha was long dead. By the time Mahayana started emerging, it's been at least 500 years since Buddha, 400 years at least, if you go by short chronology and not long. Buddha was long dead. And his life story became exaggerated and embellished. He became semi-divine gradually. So how he is emerging? लोग भूल गए तब का. बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर को लोगों ने ऑलरेडी बुद्धिस्ट बना दिया है, you know. Right? When we remember his day as महापरिनिर्वाण day, जब गुजर गए थे. क्यों? Because he helped all the people. So he was Bodhisattva. And therefore the day he died is Mahaparinirvana day. So it's 20th century Bodhisattva. Okay. It is Mahayan concept. So how it all happened? Firstly, there was status regarding what happened to him after Nirvana. वो तो चला गया. Now, if Buddha is such a great person, why would he be so selfish that he would take his own Nirvana and go away? You all common people who are worshipping Buddha, he should come and help you. No, he has not gone. He is there somewhere. So, Nirvana में का concept क्या है कि you have gotten out of cycle of samsara. आप चले गए, खत्म, मुक्ति हो गई आपकी, लेकिन अब नहीं. आपकी मुक्ति होगी, अकेले की कैसे होगी? सबकी होनी चाहिए. You have to help everybody. आप भगवान हो. So he is not. So he is still out there somewhere. Being compassionate, he would never cut himself off from others because we have emotional needs. भगवान है, ठीक है. डरो मत, हम हमारे पीछे, आप अपने पीछे खड़ा हूं मैं. So he would actively work for the welfare of all beings in this world and that world also, everywhere. So that's how Buddha became very complex. Now people started story बनाना शुरू कर दिया. We have बुद्धा तो आया था, चला भी गया. He is dead. तो फिर कहाँ पे है वो? Well, there are 3 Buddhas. Buddha number 1, number 2, and number 3. There are 3 Kaya Buddhism. Buddha. 3 Kaya. 3 Kaya is body. Buddha has 3 bodies. The one that is at the earth, the historical Buddha, Shakya Muni Buddha, who was born and who died, he is called as Nirmana Kaya. Then there is one Buddha in between in heaven. He is blissful. He is blissful in various ways. He is Sambhoga Kaya. And third Buddha is not even human. He is the Dhamma itself. That is transcendental Buddha. That is Dharma Kaya. You have Nirmana Kaya, Sambhoga Kaya, and Dharma Kaya. So you have at 3 different levels, 3 different Buddhas. जो जन्म लिया था, the one who was born, who did all this, he was only the lowest kind of Buddha, lowest kind of Buddha. दैट इज नॉट, इट्स जस्ट अवतार काइंड ऑफ थिंग। असली तो धर्म को आया है, वो तो है ही वहां पे, मदद कर रही है आपको। बुद्धा टेक्स्ट हिज मैसेज, धर्म का आया, बुद्धा कहीं नहीं गया, यहीं पे। दैट इज वन थिंग। देन यू हैव, thus many devotional cults sprang up very soon. The moment Buddha was still there, bhakti karo. Devotional cults sprang up in which reverence and homage were offered and intercessions sought. So here only I can do some kind of prayer and I can request Buddha to intercede in my regular affairs. Aap aao, intervene karo. So now I don't do it myself. I don't strive for my own help. I get the help from outside. It is exactly opposite of what Buddha had said. Strive yourself. Atta Deepa Bhava. You become your own light, or you become your island unto yourself. अब पूजा करो, बाहर से बुद्ध आएगा, मदद करेगा. It is becoming bhakti. Then you have belief in Maitreya Buddha. But Buddha is not dead. Rather, one more future birth of Buddha will come. Maitreya Buddha, जो आएगा, कली का अवतार. You have Mahdi in Islam. आने का अहद कर दिया, आए जो ख्वाब में. If you know the famous शेर. Anyway, शेर व शायरी पढ़ते हो कि नहीं पढ़ते हो? चलो छोड़ो. So Maitreya, in every religion, there is a belief that in future, on the day of judgment, before that, after that, something will come. In Hinduism, you have Kali, Vishnu का अवतार. Even we have this idea of यदा यदा धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत, तो हमेशा आएगा अवतार. In Buddhism also you have Maitreya Buddha, who will come in future and become the base of many popular cults. In Islam also you have Mahdi. We have many, in Akbar ka era, one Mahdi had come. In 19th century in Egypt we have one Mahdi revolt. So these things go on. Now help and intercession are possible through agency of saints and bodhisattvas. So how do you take the help of Buddha? You need somebody to intercede. जैसे मंदिर में जाते हो, एक पंडा बीच में आता है. The panda is a mediator between you and God. Pope is a mediator between you and God. Like you have your saints, कई सारे monks and bodhisattvas are a mediator between you and Buddha. The Buddha is still there, will come to help you. Salvation is no more individual responsibility. So it is not your own responsibility to achieve your nirvana. Your task is to ask help. You will get it. ऐसे है, दे दो. ठीक है. So you have three kaya. So Buddha is changing. On one hand. On second hand, bodhisattvas are becoming important. And what do? They help everybody. So Mahayana religion is primarily about everybody attaining nirvana and not only you individually. So therefore it is universal nirvana. And this idea itself is a grand idea. You can even imagine that all humanity can be liberated. It's a bold statement. Buddha never made that statement. Buddha informed Sangha. Because if you want to get nirvana, join Sangha. Everybody can't get nirvana. You have to do all these efforts. समाज में रहकर कुछ नहीं मिलेगा इतना. So Buddha had that idea clear. And even in Sangha, every monk will do it himself or herself. None. यहाँ पे don't worry, सबको मिल जाएगा. खैरात है. That is, see, popular religion का मतलब क्या होता है? आप लोगों के efforts कम कर दो, नोट्स रेडीमेड दे दो, आपको पढ़ाई करनी नहीं है, आप सब IAS बन जाओगे. This is the promise. Everybody will become IAS. So universal way to salvation, that is called Mahayan का मतलब Mahayan. सबका यूनिवर्सल. एंड इट्स यान में बैठ के आप पहुंचो, सब आयस बन जाओगे, मसूरी पहुंच जाओगे यहाँ से. ऐसे एनीवे, सी, नोट्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट, टीचिंग इज इंपॉर्टेंट, बट सेल्फ हेल्प इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट. Bodhisattvas come to foreground, Buddha recede, becomes more sublime. I talked about Bodhisattva is important. Sometimes, therefore, it is also called as Bodhisattva Yan. Its other name is Bodhisattva Yan. What do we have in it? Concept of savior. Bodhisattva is a savior. It's in many religions. Krishna is a savior. आएगा, बचाएगा आपको. You have saviors in many religions. Christianity, you have savior. So the highest ideal, a life dedicated to the well-being of the world, not yourself. That is the highest. Now, initially, what was the highest ideal? To follow Ashtanga Marga and get Nirvana. Now that is not the objective. Now objective is to, if you become Buddha, you are selfish. Objective is to help everybody. well-being of the entire world, Mahayana. Then self-sacrifice. So Bodhisattvas are those beings who have capability to become Buddha, capability to get Nirvana, but they are sacrificing. They will not take Nirvana purposefully, even though they are capable of taking it. Why? They have to help others. They have to help others. So that is self-sacrifice. Not seeking own salvation, they take a vow to work tirelessly over countless lifetimes to lead others to Nirvana. तो आप कॉमन लोग हो, चिंता मत करिए, आएंगे हम, डोनेशन दो. Everyone who subscribes to Mahayan technically becomes Bodhisattva. So everybody is a Bodhisattva technically. The moment you start walking on the path towards become Buddha, you become Bodhisattva. The path is mentioned, the steps are mentioned, you see them also. But everybody is Bodhisattva. But after you take the vow to become Bodhisattva, the most of this, it's just starting point of their long course of spiritual development. So not every Bodhisattva is of equal developed level, evolved level. That is one thing. Second thing is Karuna. The thing, selfless love, Maha Karuna, compassion. It is very important thing. It was there in earlier Buddhism also. Metta, Mudita, Karuna, they are very important terms of early Buddhism. Metta is coming Maitra, friendship. That is again selfless love, different kind of love. Metta or Maitra goes very close to idea of love in Christianity. So Karuna is one important compassion. Compassion for suffering of others, which motivates a Bodhisattva to sacrifice himself. So why does Bodhisattva sacrifice? Because he has compassion for others. And that Mahakaruna is so you generate a religion which is altogether new. It works on good of everybody. Bodhisattva devotes his efforts to becoming a good friend to beings. Sabka dost banega. He helps them. How? By example. He will show how to work. He himself work. Then by reducing their suffering in practical ways, he will intercede, reduce your suffering. And by encouraging and helping them and by teaching them the path to liberation. So he is your friend and savior, Bodhisattva. What is happening earlier? The life of Buddha, his message was most important. Now Buddha is becoming sublime, God, Trikaya, Maitreya, all those things, and Bodhisattvas are becoming very important. So Bodhisattvas are not invented by a Mahayan, they are there already. Now their role and category has changed. Now you have many Bodhisattvas. So Mahayan religion gives birth to Buddhist cosmology. This is a typical cosmology, how the universe looks like. And this is, what is this? Yes, naam kya hai? Borobudur. It is UNESCO World Heritage Site. This stupa is nothing but the physical manifestation or physical form of how Buddhist cosmology looks like. But we don't need to go into detail, but there is universe. You have universal accessibility of awakening because everybody can now have Nirvana, together with the idea that universe has no beginning in time and no end. तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने क्या कर दिया? There is no beginning, no end. Everything is collapsed. So Bodhisattva, which was earlier previous births of Buddhas. So at one point of time, anywhere in chronology, you have only one Bodhisattva. फिर वो मरेगा, नया आएगा, मरेगा, नया आएगा. Then Buddha will come, go. Then future Buddha will come. Now entire time is collapsed into one point. There is no past, there is no future. Like you are sitting here. He is your father, grandfather, 10 generations before. Everybody is here. Nobody is dying. I am personally fascinated by this idea of collapse. There is no concept of time. Like past and future. मेरे होने वाले बेटे, उसके बेटी या बेटे सारे यहीं पे बैठा है. I think of Mughal painting in which all the generations are shown in one painting at one place. And this is such a comforting thing to humankind. मृत्यु नहीं है. Don't worry. ठीक है, सब है यहीं पे है, आपके बगल में बैठे हैं. अभी it sounds very laughable thing, but it is a very profound thought if you give it a serious thought. तो बुद्धा का भी same. All Bodhisattvas are there at the same time. But where are they? If they are all here, they should have some space. We have Buddha Kshetra. So in this entire cosmos, some Bodhisattva is there, it knows heaven, somebody is there doing something else. We have these images, some ideas of this cosmology, stories. And this is a very rich story. It fascinates. In Hinduism, they created Puranas. So in Buddhism, they created Mahayan cosmology with all the stories. पुराणों की कहानियां कभी खत्म होती नहीं, हजारों कहानियां हैं. In the early things, if you go to Tibet, for example, your mandala paintings. These mandala paintings are somewhat kind of this Buddhist cosmology only. Anyway, infinite number of beings and infinite number of worlds leads to the conclusion that there are not only infinite number of bodhisattvas in the universe, but also infinite number of Buddhas, each dwelling in his own world realm, Buddha Kshetra. सब लोग यहीं पे कहीं ना कहीं अलग अलग दुनिया में, सारी दुनिया एक साथ. It's like parallel time. The existence of these Buddhas erases the separation between samsara and nirvana. So, right? Nirvana के बाद कहीं जाएंगे यहीं पे. We'll discuss in detail because it comes from idea of Shunyata. We'll do that later, but understand it. So, because there is no nirvana and samsara separation, everything is here, right now, right here. So, the idea of that Buddha cease to exist upon attaining nirvana. तो जाएगा कहाँ बुद्धा? यही तो रहेगा. So, these cosmic Buddhas play a role in many Mahayan sutras and much more so in later tantric tradition. So this is the context. I will not discuss the cosmology itself, not required for us. Just understand the concept. This idea, why there is no samsara nirvana separation, why there is no past and future separation, we'll study in detail in some later slide. But understand it leads to cosmology, and all these bodhisattvas are therefore there at the same time. So, for example, what kind of bodhisattvas are there? You have Mahayan invented names and characteristics of these fictional Buddhas and located them in various world realms, Buddha Kshetras. Avalokiteshvara is the one famous example. अवलोकन देखने वाला, अव नीचे, तो इसकी जो आंखें हैं looking down, अवलोकितेश्वरा. Why? Because his great compassion. If you take a close up, he is looking at the earth. सब जीवित मात्र खड़े हैं, मेरी compassion सबके लिए है, अवलोकन कर रहा है. अवलोकितेश्वरा, the Lord who looks down with great compassion, he epitomizes Mahakaruna. Avalokiteshvara, maybe he or she. In India, he is he. If you go to China, it becomes she, Padmapani, she. But it doesn't matter. So this is a famous painting of Avalokiteshvara from Ajanta, UNESCO World Heritage Site. We'll see it in detail also when we study Ajanta painting, but UPSC asked question on Avalokiteshvara 3 years ago. Then depicted as having many arms outstretched to help suffering, 11 arms, 22 arms, उसके बहुत हाथ होते हैं. And Dalai Lama in Tibet is nothing but reincarnation of Avalokiteshvara. Now, they ask you, is there concept of reincarnation in Buddhism? Technically, no. Because there is no Atma. Atma ही नहीं है तो soul नहीं है तो जन्म किसका होगा? Well, it is wrong. Buddhism developed a very complex philosophy of dependent origination, Pratyukta Sampada, to tell you that without Atma also there can be rebirth. And you have some cycle of sansar, and nirvana is getting away from the cycle of sansar. And rebirth is very well in go to Tibetan Buddhism today. They tell you कि आप पुराने जन्म में कौन सी योनि में पैदा, आप कुत्ते थे या घोड़े थे पहले, या चींटी थे या हाथी थे, बताएंगे आपको. They tell you all these things. They have the books there. So if they ask you कि there is आत्मा है तो नहीं है, but पुनर्जन्म है तो है. Bodhisattva is पुनर्जन्म of Buddha only. And Buddha had multiple janams in not all life. Buddha is humankind. Sometimes he is dog, sometimes he is elephant. Sometimes in human also he is sometimes poor, sometimes rich. So all this Jatak Katha, if you read very thoroughly, I have got a few books on Jatak Katha, very interesting, but outside our scope. Buddha goes into every kind of life. And if you are a common person, sometimes you may be poor, maybe rich, maybe male, maybe female, maybe from this land or that land, you connect to Buddha. ये तुम्हारे जन्म में बुद्धा ने लिया है कभी, तुम खुद बुद्धिस्ट बन सकते हो. So it is not a very easy philosophy. हम बुद्धिज्म पढ़ते बहुत ये डॉक्टर ने अष्टांग मार्ग है हो गया, ऐसे नहीं है वो. This is not what was there historically that influenced people, although it influences UPSC for some reason. So second is Manjushri. Manjushri is Prajna, wisdom. It is like Saraswati and Ganesh combined. Wisdom. So Prajna, which was also called as in Pali Panna. In Sanskrit we call it Prajna. In Pali they call it Panna. Same thing, wisdom. Manjushri is the Bodhisattva's wisdom. And this Karuna, and Prajna are very important parts. Therefore, these two are very important Bodhisattvas. You need to have Karuna, you need to have Prajna. Otherwise, you cannot have enlightenment. Then carries the flaming sword of wisdom which cuts through ignorance. So we have this sword that cuts to ignorance, avidya. Well, anyway, I will try to minimize my use of original words. It gives flavor, but it makes things difficult also to remember, or easy sometimes to someone. Apart from them, you have other bodhisattvas. We have family of 5 bodhisattvas. The main Shakyamuni Buddha is at the center. I will not study all the 4, rest 3 of these 4. One I will talk about, 3 for your homework. But it is a very typical famous painting of a circle that has 1 at the center and 4 at 4 corners, east, west, north and south. And this is a family of bodhisattvas. The central one is the historical one. The historical Buddha therefore is called as Shakyamuni Buddha. He was born in Shakya clan. So when I say Shakyamuni Buddha, I am referring to specific historical Buddha. When I say only Buddha, in Mahayan I could be referring to any Buddha. How do you know? Okay. Yes. So colorful common arrangement of this in circular form. Historic Buddha Shakyamuni at the center of the circle and 4 ahistoric Buddhas in south, east, north and west. Now this is in the western region. This is Amitabha Buddha. Amitabh Bachchan का नाम अमिताभ इसके ऊपर रखा है. His father Hiroshrai Bachchan was a follower, not follower but a great fan of Buddha. He has written many good poems on Buddha. Buddha or Nachaghar, 9-minute poem which is recited by Amitabh Bachchan. You should listen to that. You will find it somewhere. A very beautiful poem. If you want to understand the essence of original Buddhism, listen to the poem Buddha or Nachaghar by Hiroshrai Bachchan, recited by Amitabh Bachchan. Amitabh, what has come from Amitabha Buddha. He is called Amida in Japanese. Now we'll discuss it. In East Asian Buddhism, he became the center of popular cult which developed around the magnificent paradise called Sukhavati. He thought to inhabit. So Sukhavati was a, now I am discussing only Amitabha. These 3 are for you to find out. ठीक है, उतना homework कर लो. This is Sukhavati. This is the heaven of Buddhism. We have Amitabha sitting there. And Amitabha means the one who has blissful body. In Sukhavati, that is land of Sukh. What is that? It is an in-between area between this land and Nirvana. It's a staging area. It's like base camp, number 2 or number 3 before Everest. And it is created by Bodhisattvas because now you don't have to go from your home to Everest yourself. Bodhisattvas will come in helicopter and take you to the base camp. And they will feed you there. They will make you acclimatized. So Bodhisattvas, one is Dharmakar Bodhisattva. He later on becomes Amitabh. It's a story. Amitabh, he promised to create Sukhavati and to guarantee that ordinary beings could attain rebirth there merely by having faith in him. So if you just believe in Bodhisattva, you are done. भरोसा करो. भक्ति आ रही है धीरे धीरे. No ज्ञान and no karma, bhakti. Amitabha assured his devotees entry into Sukhavati by transferring them to some of the infinite merit he acquired during eons. Eons मतलब कई सारे ज़माने से. Eons of practice of Bodhisattva. So infinite merit. So you need to first believe in Amitabha. Do some puja bhakti. Now Amitabha will work for you. You contract out your nirvana to him. So I am using these modern terms just to make fun, but I take it seriously. I like Mahayana a lot. Okay, that's why I have read it so much. So Amitabha will do all the efforts because he has compassion for you. You do some bhakti, he will create effort, generate punya, and he will transfer punya to you because P2P transfer is allowed. Okay, and infinite merit because he is savior. The generation of merit has always been important in Buddhism, but the application of merit towards acquisition of wisdom. So merit से wisdom आना and wisdom से निर्वाण मिलना. This is new in Buddhism. It is altogether new. Merit was important itself. Prajna was important. Nirvana is important. How do you get nirvana? You follow Ashtanga Marga, in which you have to have Prajna is one part of that. But now you don't follow it. You believe in Bodhisattva or you be Bodhisattva by following something. Then you have punya which you can get transferred to you. So bhakti, punya, punya se prajna, prajna nirvana. हो गया आपका काम. So this is how Bodhisattva intercedes in your life and helps you, and you have money. Next, the last one, devotion. So Buddhism of Mahayan kind therefore gave rise to bhakti. Now there was a debate recently, we'll talk about in the next slide. The development of cosmology marked a shift away from the idea of Buddha Shakyamuni is the sole refuge or source of liberation. तो हुआ क्या देखो, बुद्धम शरणम गच्छामि, it was only Buddha. Now Buddha is one of the things where you can go and get salvation. There are many Bodhisattvas, there are many other things. So this in turn entailed a multiplicity of objects of veneration apart from Buddhas. Amitabh, Vairochana, Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshwaras, eventually even the symbolic representation, scroll painting itself became the object of veneration. We have this Nichiren Buddha's Nichiren handwriting in Japanese. It is also bhakti. You do bhakti of this handwriting, calligraphy, it's okay. It will take you to Nirvana. So Mahayana Buddhism gave rise to a rich, not only rich cosmology, but also rich visual arts, painting, drawing, sculpture. We have Gandhar Mathura coming up because of Mahayan. Okay, सबकी भक्ति करो, आपके पास ऑप्शन है जो पसंद आए. So devotionalism. Now the reason is devotionalism is absent in India in very early era. In Vedic religion there is no bhakti. In original Buddhism, early Buddhism, there is no bhakti. Now why did it emerge? There is debate. The time when India was colonized by British, they always thought that something important has come from West. So they saw, oh, Buddhism has reached Gandhar region, and in Gandhar the Greek people are there, they have gods. So Indians are copying them. It is Christianity which reached this region, and Hindus and Buddhists are copying bhakti and love from Christianity. आपने कुछ है ही नहीं आप में original. So it was thought that Mahayan had moved some away from Buddha's original teaching, that salvation was an individual जो था वो. Northwest was the cultural melting pot into which many ideas flowed along with goods and commodities, Gandhar region. But therefore people thought it is Hellenistic, that is Greek, or Zoroastrian, that is Persian, elements have come or creeped into Buddhism, and therefore we have bhakti. It is not true. Now we know it is not true. That devotional cults were already popular in India. We have seen Krishna ki image was there in Afghanistan already before the rise of Mahayan. 190 BC, Agathocles coin from Ay Khanum, we have seen Indo-Greek, the silver coin of Krishna and Balaram. It is there, bhakti थोड़ी सी है. Well, evolve होती गई बात अलग है. So it is not coming from outside. Secondly, signs of a cult of the Buddha and other charismatic saints even before earliest times. So Buddha bhakti is emerging gradually even before Mahayan. As I said, Mahayan did not start abruptly. It subsumed many other sects. So out of those 18 sects, some of them already had bhakti elements. It is older. Most likely autonomous development which arose naturally within Buddhism. That is also possible. So bhakti is not imported by us from the West. That is the point. And Mahayan is now even amongst Indian historians. Even amongst Indian historians, there was a claim by some historians that bhakti emerged first in Mahayan and then Hindus copied it. Ahimsa emerged first in Buddhism and then Vaishnavism copied it. So that is a little fuzzy area, we don't know. Bhakti पहले किसकी शुरू हुई? बुद्धा की शुरू हुई कि कृष्ण की, या जो कुछ हो, we have no idea. So let us not go into that debate, but whatever the process may be, it is Indian. That is for sure. That is about the Bodhisattva. Now come to scriptures. In Hinayana, we see the old Pali books continue to remain important. The three Pitakas. I think you know Tripitakas already. You know the elements of उसमें almost 200 plus books है सारी Tripitaka में. They are very important. Not all of them, but some of them. Now Tripitakas are not given primacy in Mahayana. They are in early Buddhism and they are considered important by Hinayana. Mahayan also thinks they are important, but not primary. Mahayan created its own books, a lot of them, hundreds of them. Firstly, there is rise of Sanskrit. Earliest texts, as I said, were in Pali. Now, gradually, in Kushan era, we have converged to Sanskrit. Sanskrit is becoming important. So, Mahayan Sutras, we have many sutras, they are composed in Sanskrit. So, when you say the word Sutta, you refer to Pali books. When you use the word Sutra, you tend to refer to Mahayan Sanskrit books. Okay. Sanskrit gradually became the main language of Buddhist scriptures and scholasticism, the study, scholarly study in India. And process began in Kushan Empire. These foreign people who had come, Indo-Greeks, Kushanas, etc., they support the Sanskrit language first. Indians support later. The language of literature. Authors. Possibly the first known, well-known author is Ashwagosha. Ashwagosha was there in Kushan, Kanishka era. He was the vice president of the 4th Mahayana Buddhist Council, the council in which Mahayan doctrines were finalized. Kashmir, Kundalvan, Harvan, right? There was a debate recent earlier that did it take place in Kashmir or in Jalandhar or in Gandhar. Now it seems that people have come to possibly a conclusion that it was in Kashmir only. But apart from Ashwagosha, we have many other scholars. We have Nagarjuna, Aryadev, Asanga, Vasubandhu, Dignaga, Sthiramati, Dharmakirti, Bhaviveka, Chandrakirti, and a lot of them. Now, the thing is that for the Sutta Pitaka, for many sections, we know that it was Buddha himself who was the author. Although he did not write it down, he was dead afterward, they were written down, Upali and Ananda in the first council. But we know the original author was Buddha. But for Mahayan, it is not possible. Then how come Mahayan can assert that these are more important than the Pitakas? Dhammapada is in Khuddaka Nikaya. Khuddaka Nikaya is one of the 5 Nikayas of Sutta Pitaka. We know that, right? How can I say that these books are more important than Buddha's own sayings? Is it possible? Well, it was. Because what did Mahayan say? Mahayan say, work of many hands, many authors, authority due to spiritual Buddha. We have Dharma Buddha, Dharmakaya. वो तो शाक्य मुनि बुद्धा था, वो तो सबसे निचला बुद्धा है. ऊपर जो बैठा है बड़ा असली बुद्धा, वो लिख रहा है हमारे हाथ के थ्रू. These are we have to do all this calisthenics to justify the point without subverting tradition. Without subverting tradition. Although Sanskrit Buddhist literature is vast and varied, there are Pradnya, Paramita Sutra, there are hundreds of sutras are there. In medieval times, all of them are gone, lost. Nothing is survived in India. We have the Chinese translations of these books, as I said in the class. Buddhism went to China. Chinese people translated that into Chinese language over centuries. And today we have to read English books of Chinese translation of original Sanskrit books. In the 20th century, we have famous Mahapandit Rahul Sankrityayan from the Hindi land who studied these Buddhist books. He had to go to Tibet many times. गधे के लात पे किताब भर भर के लेके आया वो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स इंडिया में. कुछ तो मिले, पहाड़ों में कुछ बचा होगा, बाकी तो खत्म हो गया सारा. So his books, मेरी तिब्बत यात्रा, बड़ी फेमस किताब है हिंदी में. He was one of the greatest scholars of Buddhism in 20th century. If you sometime get time, वोल्गा से गंगा वाला वही आदमी. If you sometime get time, you can read one book, Buddhacharya. Hindi में है. Although my Hindi is not good because my mother tongue is not Hindi, but I try to read it sometimes. I can read Ambedkar very easily in Marathi. So that is my advantage. But Sankrityayan I have to read in Hindi. Anyway, so point is a large number of works survive only in Tibet and Chinese translations. This is one example. Now, what are these books and how did it happen? Mahayana scriptures started to radically alter the history of Buddhism because they want to support their own viewpoint which goes against Buddha's viewpoint. At many cases we have seen that Buddha individual salvation, no community salvation. It is not what Buddha said. And how do we justify? Same thing. So they had this story called the parable of burning house in the book called Lotus Sutra, a very important sutra, Lotus Sutra. We call it Lotus because it is from Chinese to English. We call it Lotus Sutra. What can we do? It is very important, Lotus Sutra. In that we have this story of parable of burning. Parable is katha, story, comparison. लेकिन बाइबल या बिब्लिकल पैराबल्स अगर बाइबल पढ़ी हो आपने तो वो पैराबल क्या है? एक घर है, देयर इज हाउस, इट इज बर्निंग एंड देयर आर चिल्ड्रन. It's a very famous story. The children. Now they are ignorant of death, ignorant of fear. They won't know that they will die. They have no idea of where they're ignorant. वो जल जाके मर जाएंगे. So what does the father do? Father cannot tell them, teach them fear. There is no time to teach fear. There is no time to teach death and life. Father gets something which attracts them at their mental development level. So father brings a toy, a cart, many toys. बच्चे देखते हैं, उनको खेलना है, वो दौड़ के आ जाते घर के बाहर. दौड़ के आते हैं, बच गए. वहाँ पे जो घर था, the house is burnt, it collapses. And now the children are saved. Now father has time to tell them life and death. So this house is samsara. It is burning. You are dying, you don't know. The Buddha had no time at that time. So he gave you not the complete, but incomplete idea of what Dhamma is as toys, which will attract you. आपकी जो उस समय development mind की है, उस समय आपको जो attract करेगा, immediate, it is contingency. So that is what Buddha had said. Now you are saved. Now we will tell you what is real Buddhism. बोधिसत्व महायान वाले बताएंगे. अब तो बताया था पहले, वो तो आपका समय काम हो, टेम्पररी था. असली तो हम बताएंगे. So this is the parable of burning house. Parable means you have this commonality, you have comparison. So although early doctrines were not false, but incomplete. As second turning of the wheel of dharma was required for them to be fulfilled. बुद्धा ने पहले बताया वो incomplete है. We are making it complete. The Dhamma Chakra Pravartana, the first turning of wheel in Sarnath. That is okay. Now we have second turning of wheel, Mahayana Buddhism, and we will make it complete. Then we have third also when Vajrayan comes. That's a different thing. Let us read this. Although the historical Buddha had appeared to live and die like an ordinary man, he had in reality been enlightened from time immemorial. पहले से enlightened था. It was one birth in a series of births as per Mahayan. As a wise and compassionate teacher, however, he had gone through an elaborate charade, dam charade ki tarah, elaborate charade to accommodate the expectations of the people of the time. This is charade. खिलौने. Charade मतलब dam acting करना, जो आपको समझ में आए. Just as an experienced teacher would not teach an advanced topic such as calculus to students just beginning mathematics, so the Buddha had revealed only limited teaching, a spiritual ABC, which he knew his early followers could assimilate. उस समय आपको खिलौने समझ में आएंगे. The reason for this was that the true depth and scope of dharma, now fully revealed in the Mahayan, was profound beyond measure. And rather than confuse and overwhelm people, Buddha had used to use skillful means, upaya kaushalya. Upaya kaushalya, technical term in Mahayana Buddhism. It's an important technical term. Upaya kaushalya, skillful means, to put the truth before them in a simplified form. ठीक है? तो इसलिए हम महायान झूठ नहीं बोल रहा है. महायान is not subverting original tradition, it is taking it ahead. That's what they claim, but we know that it is not necessarily true all the time. It just, that's why I said in the beginning, paradoxical, and they justify paradox by telling this story. So we have in some Mahayan books also, we will not go into different books, not required for us. Okay, we'll just understand the concept. Or there is sutra called Paramita Sutra. It is very important. But if you start talking about 5 or 10 important books, I hope UPSC will not go in that region. It will become too detailed. Okay? So understand that they have different scriptures. Lotus Sutra, Paramita Sutra are two important ones. Okay? So some sutras often poked fun at the early Buddhism. So we have some element of fun also, not only justification but fun, some kind of sarcasm, मजाक, sarcasm करते हैं वो डेरोगेटली, मतलब अपमान करने के लिए, जानबूझ के. जैसे we have Vimalakriti Sutra. In this we have this person called Vimal, who is a layman, normal person, and he is debating with Manjushri. And Vimalakriti follows Mahayana Buddhism. Manjushri is earlier Bodhisattva. And a follower of Mahayan is able to defeat Bodhisattva itself of earlier Buddhism. देखो, इतनी भी अकल नहीं है आपको. हमारा सादा मानुस आपको डिफीट कर देता है डिबेट में. तो हम बेहतर है. We are better. So now we'll see what so I'll just revise what we have done so far, otherwise you might lose track of what is happening. We discussed the spread and the difference kya hai. There is no series, entire timeline. We are in Mahayan here. Now why it emerged, Sangha Bheda, possible reasons, spread of Buddhism outside original land and therefore what was happening. Then we talked about salient features one by one. We started with how Buddha's idea changed, Trikaya, Manjushri, and you have, sorry, Maitreya, don't confuse, even I confuse sometimes. Maitreya is future Buddha and Manjushri is grace and wisdom, Bodhisattva. Okay. And Manjusha is reliquary. Okay. So Buddha changed, Bodhisattvas changed, they become more important. It is a Bodhisattva Yan also, Karuna hai, salvation hai, all these things. You have cosmology emerging. You have various Bodhisattvas like Amitabha, and here we have Manjushri. You have 5 of them. Sorry, Pradnya Paramita. Okay, that is full come. Okay. Then you have Punya, Pradnya, and Nirvan. This is Sukhavati. We talked about visual arts becoming important, emergence of devotionalism. Then we talked about Raja Sanskrit and many authors and how it was justified. Only who is the author who is also equally important or more important than Buddha. We have the parable of burning house. How did it justify? Then you have one fun. Now we talk Bodhisattva path. So Bodhisattva path is a path that you should know. Common man, how should you do? Like you want to follow Mahayan, what do? You follow Bodhisattva path because everybody can become Bodhisattva. What does it mean? In Buddhism, original Buddhism, early Buddhism, what did he say? Chaturvai Arya Satyam. What is that? First is Dukkha, then Samudaya, then Nirodha, and then Ashtanga Marga. You know that? Chaturvai Arya Satyam, 4 noble truths. Or फिर Aryani Sachani. I'm using Pali words just for the sake to make me sound very intelligent. Okay? So, this is a fun of history. You can use many languages. In medieval, we use Arabic, Farsi also. No, I read a little bit of Farsi. थोड़ा आता था पहले. I had a friend, Taimur Malaiki, from anyway. वही शमा खूब हंसती मन खूब मामनूम चलता था हमारा. तो basic. So if you want to become Mahayan, if you want to join Buddhism, early Buddhism told you that believe these 4 truths and follow Ashtanga Marga. Now it is not there. Now you have to have different path. What is in that path? You have to become Bodhisattva. So what followers of the Mahayan sought above all through their religious practice was to follow Bodhisattva path and not to attain Nirvana. So the highest objective of religion itself has changed. You should not seek Nirvana, you are Swarthi. You should seek to help everybody else by becoming Bodhisattva. That is, and how do we become Bodhisattva? Not by following Ashtanga Marga. That is gone now. We are different things. So over the course of several centuries, the various stages of various Bodhisattvas, where this is Avalokiteshvara. And he's always like prince, always like prince. In what happened in Gandhar region, Buddha had to be sculpted as a very fakir person. But these Bodhisattvas, some of them were rich, prince-like. So he's prince-like. And here the artist got the chance to show jewelry and clothes and refinement and everything. Ornaments. So first stage towards that is to have bodhichitta. It is like conversion moment. अब मैंने ठान लिया, चित्त जो है मैंने मन में कसम खाई कि मैं बनूंगी. So crucial initial stage, thought of enlightenment. I have thought that I will get enlightenment, and it's like conversion experience. Initial motivation to become Bodhisattva to save others. The first stage is having bodhichitta. Chitta is man. Then you get vow. Vow is called as pranidhana. Now you take a vow that to save all beings by leading them to Nirvana, regardless of how long it takes. Second stage. And then what do you do after that? You have decided, you have taken vow. Bodhichitta and pranidhana. Then you have paramitas or paramitas. The paramita UPSC asked. People had no idea. Couple of years ago, not last year, last 2020 they asked. 2020, yes. Paramitas. No, paramitas are good deeds. So in early Buddhism, we had Ashtanga Marga for everybody to reach Nirvana. Here we have paramitas to become Bodhisattva. Paramita, good deeds, virtuous deeds. What do they contain? You have 6 of them which are very important. Dana, Shila, Shanti, Virya, Samadhi, Prajna. Typical things. Daya, Kshama, Shanti type. Originally there were 6, later on they became 10. Some 4 were added, like Upaya Kaushalya, Pranidhana, Bala, and Jnana. Jnana was also very important, by the way. In Japanese, the Jnana then becomes Jhana. Jhana Buddhism. Jhana is very important, but we don't study it anyway. That's for Japanese history. We have this Upaya Kaushalya, etc. These are good deeds that you should follow. Ashtanga Marga era is gone. Then you have, the moment you start following them, you arise in your spiritual progress. Like in Jainism, you have 14 Gunasthanas. Here you have 10 Bhumis, stations. Station 1, station 2, and 10th is the last station. We have 10 Bhumis. I have listed them. You do not need to memorize them. Don't worry. This is not for memorization. What you need to know is only 2 words, Bhumi and Paramita. That is all. But Bhumis have, Paramitas are 6 or 10 and Bhumis are 10. 10 stations, like Mario stage level 1, stage level 2, stage level 3, Bhumis, second stage, third stage. First is joyful, Vimala, Prabhakari, etc. We have various Bhumis. Ultimately, you go to Dharma Mega, shower with cloud of Dharma, universal truth. So this is entirely different religion, to be very honest, as per my understanding. But it emerged. So Bhumis are stages of spiritual progress of Bodhisattva. Scheme of 10 stages, each a major landmark on the way to Nirvana. In Sufism, you have Maqam. Maqamat. Plural of Maqam is Maqamat. So in Sufism also you go on spiritual journey under guidance of your Peer or Murid or Sheikh or Wali, and you are Murshid, and you follow that, and you have very techniques like, anyway, हम पढ़ेंगे तो Sufism देख लेंगे, not go there, but it is like that only. So once he reaches the 7th stage, it is impossible for him to fall back, and it is certain that he will reach Nirvana. It's like that. Although this scheme constitutes reformulation of early teachings, the new way to Nirvana is not radically different from Ashtanga Marga. Because Ashtanga Marga was also divided into 3 parts: morality, meditation, and wisdom. Shila, Prajna, and morality is Shila, meditation is Samadhi, and wisdom is Prajna. So Shila, Samadhi, Prajna are 3 important categorizations of early 8 Ashtanga Margas. And similarly, these things are also divided into same 3 parts. So division is same, the detailing is changed. So what I can do technically is have these 3 things: morality, that is Shila, then I have meditation, Samadhi, practice, and I have wisdom, Prajna. I can have Ashtanga Marga divided into these 3 parts, and I can have 6 paramitas again divided into these 3 parts. So these are 3 major baskets. They are there always. May it be Hinayan or Mahayan, doesn't matter. Inside them, changes happen. So Bodhisattvas who had reached the higher stages of their career. So this is the career of Bodhisattva. And they reach the higher stages. They are visualized as enormously powerful beings. And they are very close to their Buddha himself almost. The difference between Bodhisattva and Buddha is blurred. Not gone, completely blurred. Bodhisattva, yeah. Buddha is not important, it is more important. Then, now we have seen Bodhisattva Yana also, Bodhisattva path also. Now philosophical developments. There are 2 important sub-schools of Mahayana. We have Buddhism, we have Hinayana, Mahayan, Vajrayan. Inside Mahayan, you have important developments of philosophy. Based on that, you have 2 sub-schools. One is Madhyamaka and one is Yogachara. You have to see that now. It is little difficult. I will mention some facts, but we do not need to go into detail, so don't worry. This is a famous person who is founder of Madhyamaka school. He is from Andhra Pradesh. His name is Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna, who may have lived in 150 CE, so in Satavahan era, when Amaravati Stupa was being built, he is there. We have seen Stupa, we know Satwan, we have seen, now we connect the dots. That's why some people say that Mahayan may have emerged first in South. We don't know. We don't know. But Nagarjuna is very important. He founded Madhyamaka school. Now, what is Madhyamaka? Madhyamaka comes from Madhyama Marga. Buddha talks Madhyam Marga, he uses that. But he is a very radical thinker. Very radical thinker. So, as the new sutras multiplied, we have seen many sutras are multiplying. Some scholars came and they composed commentaries and they created some kind of philosophy. What was that? Here, doctrine of origination in independence, Theravada. So, original Buddhism had some doctrine called origin in independence. It is Pratitya Samutpada. You have studied that when you study Buddha, right? So, what happens when there is no Atma? How can there still be rebirth? There is something real. If everything is anitya, anicca, something has to dharmas. So they call this is not dhamma wala dharma, it's a different dharma, it's a basic constituent reality. And all of them come into flux and they create reality. So for example, you have the chair, for a chair, kursi hai. Chair might be seen as consisting of only legs, seat and back. Legs hai, seat hai, back hai, chair ban gayi. So where is chair? There is no chair. There are legs, there is seat and there are back. These dharmas come together to make reality. Chair apne aap mein kuch hai nahi. So this can disintegrate. Vedhamma sankhara appamadena sampaditha. That's what Buddha said when he died. Hey Ram, जैसे महात्मा गांधी ने आत्मी बोला था, बुद्धा ने ये बोला था. So things disintegrate. They come momentarily together in the flux and you think they are real. They are not like Nadi. Nadi is what? Nadi is just all droplets coming together. That is not reality. Droplets are reality. So likewise, here you have these dharmas, then there are various dharmas which are real elements. It's about ontology, the perception of reality in Buddhism. All Buddhism. Will not go in detail. Itna samajh lo bas. But what Nagarjuna does smartly, he applies dharma to dharma itself. Bole, ye bhi jhuti hai fir. As I said in the paradoxical, no? What he says, he taught that dharmas were not just impermanent, but lacked any inherent reality at all. He summed up by saying that all phenomena, tables, chairs, mountains, people are simply empty of any real meaning. Shunyata. Everything is empty. So he interpreted the doctrine of origin independence in a more radical way. He applied dharma to dharma. Like Rousseau did. He applied enlightenment to enlightenment. Same. So, yet it was not a doctrine of nihilism, but it is not nihilism. ये सबको खत्म नहीं कर देता. The teaching does not claim that things do not exist. It merely says that they do not exist as independent realities in the way people normally assume. So it claimed that the true status of phenomenon is something midway between existence and non-existence. It is not completely real. It is also not completely unreal. It is Madhyam Marga. That's why Madhyamaka. Because it is true, other end is completely untrue. कुछ बीच वाला रास्ता है, ना सत्य है ना असत्य है. ठीक है. So इतना आप तो काफी है. Let us not go in detail more than this. We have this famous example of rope, which was also used by Shankaracharya later on. That it looks like it is sap, snake. When you go closer, you realize it is not a snake, it's a rope. That is how your reality perception is. दुनिया आपको लगती है ये कुछ है नहीं, कुछ अलग ही है. So, doctrine of emptiness, Shunyavad. No difference between Nirvana, because as I said, everything is empty. Then Nirvana is also empty. Samsara is empty. Because both of them are empty, both of them are same. Shunyavad. So, no difference between can be found in things themselves, since they are all ultimately empty. The difference therefore must lie in our perception of them. You perceive them to be Nirvana and Samsara. They are not. They are one and the same. Buddha क्या पागल था? So that's what they have to make that paradoxical calisthenics. What is needed for liberation is essentially a correct vision. You should understand that there is no samsara, no nirvana. That lack of understanding is your ignorance. When you follow Mahayana, you should get correct vision. When you realize that ऐसे कुछ होता नहीं है अलग, अब बन गए महात्मा. ठीक है. So what is needed is for liberation is essentially correct vision to see things as they are, rather than to embark on a flight from one supposedly imperfect reality, samsara, to better one, निर्वाण, ये नहीं है ऐसे कुछ. Nirvana is thus reinterpreted by Madhyamaka as a purified vision of what is seen by the ignorant as samsara. It's purified vision. It's not something station in Mahayana. But when UPSC asks you and it mentions only Buddhism, do not go Mahayana way. Always, whenever there is mention of only Buddhism, always think of old Buddhism, not this one. Okay? The removal of spiritual ignorance, that is avidya. उसको हटा दो and realization of that things are empty destroys the fear. Fear चला गया, craving चला गया, दुख भी चला गया, फिर अब दुख किस चीज का, कुछ है ही नहीं. The same thing happened to Arjun when Krishna showed him विश्वरूप दर्शन. समझ लो क्या है, ये देख जगत का आदि अंत, यह देख महाभारत कारण, देख लो, विजन आपको आ गई, आपको प्राप्ति हो गई, कुछ अलग नहीं है इसमें. ठीक है. So it has been the inspiration of Mahayan thought down the centuries, generating countless commentaries and treatises. So doctrine of Shunyata, Shunyavad is very important, and that is why agar samsara nirvan, there is no samsara, there is no nirvan, there is no present, there is no past, everything is collapsed. We have cosmology. All bodhisattvas are there at the same time. Then there is second school, that is Yogachara. Yoga, it is idealistic. So idealistic means it doesn't talk of materialistic, it is idealistic, not realistic. So chitta matra. So it says everything is, I will not go in detail. Again, it is philosophical beyond our requirement, but I have some facts over here for your reference. But understand, everything is pure consciousness. Consciousness. Consciousness is only which is idealistic and real. Beyond that, there is all ignorance. And how to realize that pure consciousness? You have to do meditative practices. Therefore, Yogachara, Yogasana is very important. Different kind of meditations. So, teaching of mind only, a form of idealism which sees consciousness as the sole reality and denies objective existence to material. आपके दिमाग के बाहर कुछ नहीं है सामने, जो कुछ है यहीं पे. ना मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ, ना आप पढ़ रहे हो. मोमेंट यू रियलाइज कि भाई स्टूडेंट और आईएएस में फर्क नहीं होता है, तो आपका दुख चला जाएगा, स्ट्रेस कम हो जाएगा, और अब बस यू विल स्ट्राइव फॉर परफेक्शन, पारमिता. यू प्रिपेयर वेरी वेल. कर्मयोग. ठीक है. So it attaches great importance to the analysis of consciousness and asserts that mundane experiences are fundamentally constructs of the mind. देखते हो आपका mental construct. There is no objective thing. There is everything is subjective. You are the subject. Meditative experience played an important part in the development. Practice manuals prescribe the practice of mindfulness of body, feelings, thoughts, and dharmas in oneself and others. In this awakening, you know, if you have eradicated difference between samsara and nirvana, if you have eradicated difference between past and present, you also have eradicated difference between you and others. That is why Mahayan, because Bodhisattva cannot have his own individual nirvana, because he is not inseparable from you and me. तो करुणा वहां से आती है, सब लोग एक ही हैं. इट इज यूनिवर्सल. ठीक है. तो हंस रहे यार, आपको शायद एनलाइटमेंट हो रही है बीच बीच में. So it was founded by a monk called Maitreya-nath, but the two important monks are Asanga and Vasubandhu. They are two brothers in 4th century from again South India, and Sthiramati, Dharmakirti, etc. And teachings of Yogachara were introduced in China, Japan, etc. Tibet वगैरह. So this is about, so all these things that are taken by Shankaracharya. If you read Shankaracharya's story, he is using all these examples. He is using this Satchidananda, that is consciousness. He is using this rope and coil and snake wala example. He is using this Shunyavad in a different form. He talks of reality as Paramarthik and Vyavaharik. So this is, therefore Shankaracharya was criticized by his opponents as you are nothing but secret Buddhist, crypto Buddhist. Okay. But anyway, that is not for us. Next part, Mahayan, as I said, is changing everything. It is new, yet it has some continuity also. We'll see what is old that continued. Mahayan saw itself as recovering the true meaning. Even Mahayan never claimed to be true or claimed to be new. It always claimed the true meaning, which was not told to you by Buddha. Now we are telling you. So we are the old one. So they are not asking for you to believe that they are new ones. So Mahayan itself claimed that they are recovering the true meaning, which had been lost sight of by early tradition. Then the notion of selfless compassion, Mahakaruna, finds expression in the Bodhisattva ideal, which was already there in Buddha's era. The concept is not new, Mahakaruna, which is very central to Mahayan. The doctrine of emptiness, Shunyata, can also be seen in very embryonic form, in a very rudimentary form, in Pratyasamutpada, Buddha's Anitya, original flux. वहाँ से तो आके बनता ही है, वो भी ओरिजिनली वहीं से आता है. And then you have the meditator's experience of Yogachara. Meditation is given very much importance by Buddha. Buddha Marga. Buddha Marga is what it is. Originally, it was not a religion. It was just a marg, its path to nirvana. It became religion later on gradually. And in that Buddha Marga, a lot of emphasis is given on psychological status. We have a different complete discipline in academia called Buddhist psychology. So yoga and meditation are given huge importance to understand the reality in Buddhism. If you go to Vipassana, for example, today, they will make you just understand yourself for a long time. Vipassana is coming from where? From Myanmar in 20th century, S.R. Goenka, Hinayan practice of meditation. Right? It is a revival of Buddhism in 20th century. You don't see Buddhism as reviving in a religious movement necessarily. You have Vipassana. Everybody follows or likes Dalai Lama. So these are all Buddhist forms. So some things are there from old which continued. Now a couple of slides about, apart from we have seen idea of Buddha, we have seen Bodhisattva, we have seen the scriptures, we have talked about path, we saw how it affected the idea of nirvana, etc. Now see what about the Sangha. So all monks obtain their ordination in one of the sectarian Vinaya lineage. So Mahayana is not an abrupt break. The monks in Mahayan also come in tradition, Vinaya lineage. You have various Vinaya schools, and they get initiated into this old schools only, not new schools. Mahayan Buddhism is organized as a thoroughly monastic movement. It is also based on Sangha only, but there is some difference. Many Mahayan schools emphasize the importance of the laity. Laity means upasaka, common people. This attention stems partly from the appreciation of the fact that real renunciation is not complete, but depends for the success on simultaneous engagement in and non-attachment to the world. Madhyamaka. आप पूरा जंगल में नहीं जाना है आपको. You have to stay near a city and still manage. Then only you have real nirvana. You have to engage with society and also stay away from society. Can you manage that? Okay. And then in Japan, this conception of renunciation eventually led to practice. In थोड़ा आगे वाली चीज है कि वहाँ पे तो monk लोग शादी भी करते थे. अब शादी करके भी आप खुद को you can engage in all mundane things and still become Buddhist monk. तो मध्यम मार्ग वहाँ पे ढूंढ के घर के अंदर मध्यम मार्ग निकालो. अब जस्टिफाई करने कुछ भी करो, जस्टिफाई. So Mahayan Sanghas on the Silk Route. It is, I think, now we are coming close to the end. That Silk Route trade जब चल रहा था, when there was Kushan Empire, it is at that time in Gandhar Mahayan is developing. So they get a lot of, because of the creation of huge philosophy, they get a lot of funding. Sangha's purpose change. You see, relationship between the traders and Buddhist establishment was mutually beneficial. The Sanghas, Viharas became commercial establishments, engaging in trade, investment, and even manufacturing, in addition to the main goal of promoting Buddhism. वही हुआ. So while merchants made large donation to important Buddhist texts such as Lotus Sutra, the text writing became important, and for that you need different kind of material on you write, the cloth you keep it on, painting, all these things promoted trade. You have the Mahayana monasteries which act as, if you go on trade route, you need some people who can make accounts, reading, who can have literacy, go to monk. If you need local intelligence, कहाँ पे क्या बिकेगा, go to monk. So you want to as a trader want to stay somewhere, go to Vihar. So they are intimately connected to commercial expansion of India. And therefore, when after Gupta era, gradually economy declined. The trade economy declined, not entire trade part declined, Buddhism declined in India. But Buddhism was great when India was doing great economically. It is just manifestation in the Marxist sense. But anyway, while earlier Buddhist texts spoke of donation of rice and bread to monasteries, Kushan era texts specify silk, gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, pearls, red, इसका दान करना है आपको. In the Kushan period, Buddhist monks and nuns largely settled in viharas, built around stupas, to study, preach, and serve society for rituals, including funerals. हमने देखे कई सारे, like we have seen this तख्ते बाही, वो सब विहारा तो है, along with stupas. They organized large-scale constructions and had sculptures, statues, and wall paintings made to display the stories of Buddha's former lives and his career as a teacher. Dharma or drama was performed in Buddhist monasteries. So we have Ashwagosha, who is writing dramas. One of the first Sanskrit dramatists that is available today is Ashwagosha. There are two of them, Ashwagosha and Bhasa. We are not sure who is first one. But Bhasa is writing non-Buddhist, Ashwagosha is writing Buddhist stories. Any of them could be first one, we have no idea. Dates available hai nahi. So this point is important because this is performing arts and this is visual arts. Then women, how are women portrayed in Mahayan Buddhism? We have seen, Santosh sir has talked about women in original Buddhism. Earlier, no, see Mahayan, similar thing, nothing changed. You have portrayal which is of both positive and negative type, like always. Devi bhi hai और सांप भी है. That's what they say. She is mysterious, elusive, sensual, dangerous, weak in body, weak in mind. At the same time, wise, maternal, gentle, compassionate, creative. Confusion चल रहा है दोनों तरफ से ढोल बजाओ आप. Then woman's sexuality is seen as threatening to others and to their own spiritual aspirations, and that is important. That has always been a problem. So when you have a female saint like Akka Mahadevi, or you have Vena Bai, or you have in Kashmir, who is the female saint in Kashmir? Lal Ded. So all, or Mirabai, they have to forget their husband. They can't be a sexual being and yet follow bhakti. That is allowed to men, not to women. For women, their body is a barrier towards God, on a path towards God. For men, it is not. So Akka Mahadevi in 13th century goes to suggest she goes completely naked. What can she do? You have to negate your sexuality. That's a problem. Even Kabir, sometimes he thinks good of women, sometimes he thinks bad of women. The best of these saints in India, because साधक परंपरा में वो दिक्कत इंडिया में हमेशा से रही है. Anyway, so renunciation, although the path of renunciation was open to women, the text frequently focus on women within the household and display an anxiety about the impact of women leaving their household to become nuns. So good thing about Buddhism is that it allowed women to get nirvana. Some of them, not all Buddhists, some Buddhists. And secondly, they have their own Sangha. So if you compare with the contemporary era, it is far away, far ahead of time. But if you compare by today's feminist standards, it is not equality. तो आप कंपेयर किससे कर रहे हो ये मायने रखते हैं. गाली मत दो बुद्धा को यार, वो जमाना अलग था. उसके पास जो था उसमें बहुत कुछ किया, जो कर सकता था आदमी कर लिया उसने. You can't expect him to be 20th century radical feminist. Nirvana potential. So Mahayana texts are divided. Although few do suggest that maleness and femaleness were illusory and irrelevant, most of them present two alternative paths to attaining Bodhisattvahood to for women. Some sutras declare that woman could not enter this path until she was reborn as a man. अब मर जाओ, दोबारा पैदा हो, फिर आपको पक्का मिलेगा. Others contain stories of miraculous sex changes. Stories कि भाई औरत थी, अंदर आ गई, आदमी बन गई. So see, whatever you do, female body is thought as a barrier towards path to bhakti. And Bhikkhuni Sangha, yes, Bhikkhuni Sangha was there. Buddha himself started it. But it is in shadows. It doesn't get as much donation as the Bhikkhu Sangha gets. So I have just put down the difference in two parts. क्योंकि आपको अंत में यही पढ़ना है सिर्फ. I know that. You read it on your own. Let us do some MCQs of UPSC. In the Mahayana Buddhism, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was also known as Vajrapani, Manjushri, Padmapani, Maitreya. Padmapani. I have not taught it. So we have actually Padmapani and Vajrapani. What is Pani? Pani is not water. You have two Panis. Let me draw. Basic. We have in Devanagari, this is water and this is hand. This is Dirgha, this is Rasva. When you say Padmapani, Chakrapani, Krishna is Chakrapani. Ram is Kodandapani. हाथ में कोदंड पकड़ा है तो पानी माने हाथ. दिस इज पानी. आई एम पेन पानी. ठीक है. सो व्हेन यू से पद्म पानी इट मींस इन हैंड देयर इज पद्म लोटस एंड वज्र पानी हाथ में क्या है वज्र. ठीक है. अवलोकितेश्वरा इज जनरली पद्म पानी. ठीक है. Avalokiteshvara could be Vajrapani also because I have read in some text that it has two parts. One is Padmapani and one is Vajrapani. But when UPSC gives two other options, then you should go with Padmapani. It is gracious, it is ferocious. Vajra मतलब गुस्से में खड़ा है, वज्र हथियार है. इंद्र का हथियार वज्र था. Then the painting of Bodhisattva Padmapani is one of the most famous and oft illustrated paintings at Ajanta, Badami, Bagh, Ellora. Ajanta, simple question. With reference to Indian history, who among the following is a future Buddha yet to come to save the world? Avalokiteshvara, Lokeshvara, Maitreya, Padmapani. Maitreya. But now we have found Lokeshvara, which we have not seen. Go and Google that. Who is Lokeshvara? Because it is at least as much important that UPSC has asked it, so you should be able to answer a separate question on at least 1-2 lines. We should know about Lokeshvara now. Then consider the following statements: deification of the Buddha, reading the path of Bodhisattva, image worship and rituals. Which of the above is or are the features of Mahayana Buddhism? 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All of them. Done. A simple question they ask. We have gone too far of what is required. I could have wrapped up in less half. मैं आपका आधा घंटा बचा सकता था. I thought you should know everything. Any question might come. Any doubt? Any query? Thank you.